All right. It looks like it's on and popping. Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook for November 4th. And Kell Brook, talking about his chances to win, utters out of his mouth, hey, Terence Crawford, I'm better than Errol Spence Jr. is. And he's about to whoop you. And guess what Terence Crawford does not get for a fight with Kell Brook? A rematch clause. Bob Arum is making the Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook fight without a rematch clause for Terence Crawford. What does that tell you? Let's talk about those things in this video. All right. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to start off with the end. Terence Crawford, you better not lose against Kell Brook or anybody else, because Bob Arum is saying that he doesn't put rematch clauses in his fighters' contracts. What a lie. However, what we're going to talk about on top of that is that Kell Brook actually told Terence Crawford that he believes that he is better, he being Kell Brook. Kell Brook is saying that Kell Brook is better than Errol Spence Jr. I think you're trying to sell the fight, but I do believe that he is good enough to do some damage against Errol Spence Jr., against Terence Crawford. But let me tell you, man, even if no matter what happens, Terence Crawford is going to be a loser in this fight over on ESPN because, dude, the day that these guys are getting ready to announce this fight, I suppose they're getting ready to announce it because Bob Arum said the fight was going to happen. Steve Kim on ESPN said the fight's going to happen, but they've not made an announcement yet. But let me tell you what Steve Kim and ESPN did with the fight about Kell Brook and with Kell Brook and Terence Crawford. They took a big old dump on that fight right on ESPN's website. Like, Bud, why do you want to be around people like this, man? Like, we're going to get into the subject matter of the video, but before I get into it, I've just got to wonder, why do you want to be around people like this? The network ESPN hires writers like Steve Kim, who then write about your fight with Kell Brook and talk about the fight like it is a complete and utter piece of trash. But yet, this is the same guy that has no problem with the fight, loved the fight between Monster Inoue and Inoue-Donaire. How in the world is Inoue-Donaire not more shop worn or any less shop worn than Kell Brook is? Inoue-Donaire lost to a little man named Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he beat up by a littler man named Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he got busted up, by Nicholas Walters years ago. But yet it's still a viable fight for Monster Inoue. But Kell Brook is a waste of time, and who cares when he's fighting Terence Crawford? And that is from your own network. Now, whether or not I think the Kell Brook fight is a great fight or not is one thing, right? But whether or not the network who is responsible for selling it to people and the boxing writers who are responsible for promoting your career once again takes a big old dump on your fight, maybe it's time for you to think, hey, maybe these guys aren't with me. But then, to boot, Bob Arum, in a press conference, when he's not next to, obviously, because of the COVID, all of the stuff with people not being able to be next to each other, but he's having a conversation, doing an interview at the same time as same time as Vasily Lomachenko, right? And he says, referring to Vasily Lomachenko, that there are no rematches for Teofimo Lopez in this fight, right? And there might not be one for Vasily, I don't know. But they weren't going to give Teofimo Lopez a rematch clause because Top Rank doesn't believe in rematch clauses. Top Rank believes, man, I'm telling you, man, these people just be lying like rugs. That there's no top rank, there's no rematch clauses because we really believe that, the best fighter wins. You just go on about your. What do you mean? Really? So Tim Bradley What happened to the rematch? How did the rematch clause wind up in Manny Pacquiao's contract for the Jeff Horn fight? How did the rematch clause wind up in Manny Pacquiao's contract for the Tim Bradley fight? How exactly does that work? And are you trying to tell me? And then why did Tyson Fury have a rematch clause in his contract with Deontay Wilder? If he would have lost, he had a rematch clause. He had to have asked for that. Bob Arum is the one that negotiated the contract. So why doesn't it exist for Teofimo Lopez, but it exists for a whole bunch of other people at Top Rank? Now, I wonder then, but since, hey, at least, maybe those were the anomalies, right? But this fight with Terence Crawford and Kell Brook doesn't have the authority, doesn't have the leverage to ask Terence Crawford for a rematch. It's on this voluntary fight. But Terence Crawford could throw his back out. Terence Crawford could get cut. Terence Crawford could have it end on a DQ. Terence Crawford could have any number of things going on with that fight that could mess that fight up for him, because that's boxing. Inoue-Donaire was fighting that champion, the bantamweight champion from the UK, who had to retire because he threw a punch in Inoue-Donaire and he threw his back out, and he hasn't been able to fight since, and he retired. So, but what happens if Terence Crawford just blows a knee out, like messes his knee up? No rematch clause? But you expect me to believe like you had Oscar De La Hoya going for man, get out of here, man. You don't want rematch clauses. Bob Arum doesn't want rematch clauses in situations where he doesn't care if another fight takes place. Because if Kell Brook beats Terence Crawford, hey man, he might get some. He might say, hey, yeah, I'll sign you to fight Terence Crawford, but I'm gonna need some options, right? So you don't get the rematch clause, but you get the options on the fighter if the guy beats him. So there's protection for the promoter in that circumstance, right? Because he's probably going to get options on the guy. Like Kell Brook, he's going to get a couple options on Kell Brook. If you beat Errol Spence, if you beat Terence Crawford, you got to fight with me for the next 2 fights. That spiel, right? So there's something in it. There's something that protect. And by the way, Bob Arum he's an exclusive promotional deal with Top Rank. With ESPN. So who is Terence Crawford going to fight if he doesn't have a rematch clause? He's going to fight whoever it is that Bob Arum tells him to fight. So it's just, man, listening to like the way that these guys are talking about this fight is ridiculous. Like, but anyway, as far as Kell Brook saying that he beat Errol Spence Jr., dude, this is why I'm saying I think this is a good fight. It's a fair, good fight. Because was he beating Errol Spence Jr. before Errol Spence Jr. knocked him out? He could have been. For the first 4 or 5 rounds, he could have been. He was definitely putting up a very, very good fight. Just like he was putting up a very, very good fight against Gennady Golovkin. He was winning that fight too. There hasn't been any instances where Kell Brook has gotten into the ring and you've seen somebody just just easily outboxing Kell Brook. It's almost like Steve Kim and ESPN, when Terence Crawford wins the fight, wants to talk badly about the fight in anticipation of Terence Crawford winning. But Lord, let Vasily Lomachenko beat Teofimo Lopez. Right? Teofimo Lopez has far less experience than Kell Brook is. He does not have any championship title defenses. He's a young, relatively inexperienced, albeit extremely talented fighter. But watch how much praise ESPN will give Vasily Lomachenko for Vasily Lomachenko beating Teofimo Lopez. Look at how much praise these guys would give Monster Inoue for anything that he did. But you won't give Terence Crawford any praise for beating Kell Brook, even though it's in your network's self-interest to do so. And don't tell me that ESPN is not into doing things that are completely in their self-interest. That is just nonsense. All you got to do is go look at their pound for pound list, and you will see that well over that half of the fighters on that list fight for them. So they have their list in which they are promoting the fighters that fight for them. Of the top 3 pound for pound fighters in the world, that ESPN has listed, and 2 of them fight for them. 3 of the 4 that they got listed fight for them, and they found some way to put Monster Inoue on there. So, look, man, Kell Brook, I support the Terence Crawford Kell Brook fight. I think Kell Brook does have a very legitimate statement when he says, look, man, I was winning the Errol Spence Jr. fight. I was winning the Kell Brook fight before my eyes got broke. It's not like they were beating me up. If I didn't have those injuries, there wouldn't have been a problem. Hey, that may be true, because guess what? He hasn't lost since 2017, and he hasn't lost since Errol Spence, and he didn't lose in between Errol Spence and Terence and Gennady Golovkin. That very well might have been an isolated incident or period in his career when he was down. Just like there are periods in Manny Pacquiao's career when he wasn't looking too hot, but he got himself out of there. Same way that after there was a loss to Anthony Joshua, he got himself out of that. The thing is, though, that people just not believing in Kell Brook, and they went on and moved on. But that doesn't mean that he's not a very, very dangerous opponent, because he is. And he's not Sean Porter, he's not Keith Thurman because of those injuries. But dude, he is an acceptable opponent for Terence Crawford, and there shouldn't be. And if he beats him, he should get full credit. And at very least, if he beats him, he should be getting full credit from ESPN, who gives a whole bunch of people more credit than they actually deserve. Anyway, it is what it is. And with that amount, let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you to the Patreons. Thank you to the channel members. Thank you to everybody that supports in the chat. And with that, I'm out. Peace.